Good evening, Azeroth, and welcome to episode 160 of the World of Goldcraft. As usual, I'm your host, the Lazy Goldmaker of thelazygoldmaker.com. Welcome back. If you're following along live, make sure you post your questions in the chat. If you aren't, then come check out the show. I record on Thursday evenings EU time at twitch.tv/lazygoldmaker. So, what are we going to talk about today? Well, I think I have an interesting one for you. We're going to talk about some PTR news because we have now some more information about the structure of legendary releases, both the recipe, cosmic flux, rates of farming, and all that jazz, which means we can start making some more, a little bit more concrete price predictions and formulate some strategies for what we can do during the patch, particularly to take advantage of the legendary market. Before we dive into that, though, I do want to shout out my patrons that make this podcast possible. If you're interested in joining us, then head over to patreon.com/thelazygoldmaker. It'll give you 7 days of early access to all of the guides I post at thelazygoldmaker.com to give you a leg up on your competition. All right, enough shilling. Get to the point. So, the big thing, this isn't actually super new. It's a couple of days old, probably. I'm just not someone who plays a lot on the PTR. But what we do know is at least what is the current unlock schedule for legendaries for 9.2, which means that we can map out the patch a little bit. So, the relevant points. The recipe for rank 7 legendaries is available after completing Chapter 5 of the new campaign. This comes out the week the Mythic Raid is open. This is going to be week 3 of the patch. And that's where you'll be able to craft rank 7 legendaries with your crafters. Obviously, you need to have done whatever prerequisites you need to get access to the Eternity's End campaign. I'm not sure if you need max renown. I haven't even checked. But that might be a possibility. So that's one thing. The other thing we know is Cosmic Flux acquisition. And based on the current knowledge, Cosmic Flux is relatively straightforward to farm. You get it, it's not capped, you can get it from a bunch of different activities. You get it from Sereth Mortis dailies, weeklies, all of that jazz. And you get it from treasures, including one-time treasures that give you quite a lot of it. And apparently in the current build you can get as much as 5,400 flux just by doing all of the one-time treasures in Sereth Mortis. And a legendary is going to cost you 2,000 cosmic flux. 2,000 to craft a rank 7 legendary at the Rune Carver. So what does this mean? It means that as soon as the recipe unlocks, players will have enough cosmic flux to craft at least one legendary, and many players will have more than enough cosmic flux to craft 2 or even 3 legendaries instantly, the day that vestiges are available. So this will mean that the potential demand on that day is going to be incredible. There's no time gating, so most people who just play the patch casually are probably going to have generated enough cosmic flux by then to be able to craft a rank 7 legendary. So I think this is going to be, from a demand point of view, I think there's going to be incredible demand for rank 7 legendaries the moment you can unlock the recipe. The moment. There's definitely going to be a large number of performance-focused players willing to spend a lot of gold on multiple legendaries, so that they can be optimal on a boss-by-boss basis in Mythic, or even optimized to farm Mythic Plus more effectively in the free time to crank out the Keystone Master achievement as soon as possible, and farm all the gear they need for Mythic Plus. There's definitely a lot of reasons to upgrade your legendaries as soon as possible. That's for the rank 7. In addition to rank 7, we're obviously also getting the ability to equip 2 legendaries, which is going to have a huge effect on the market. In the current PTR build, you get the legendary belt automatically for free, essentially, for doing the chapter 7 of the story, which is week 5 of the patch, 2 weeks after the rank 7 legendaries come out. If you want the memory to craft the Unity power on another slot, that is going to be available at the same time, but that will also have a requirement of you being revered with the Enlightened. So yeah, one thing that I was wondering about earlier was whether or not Cosmic Flux was going to be like a bottleneck. It doesn't look like it's going to be. So players are probably going to prefer to just buy the belt for 2,500 Cosmic Flux, rather than spending a lot of gold on... well, they still have to buy a rank 7 legendary, so it doesn't matter that much, but it means they don't have to grind the reputation. On the other hand, I also think a lot of players will be doing the world content in Seraph Mortis anyway, to get Cosmic Flux, to unlock other rewards from the reputation, including the Infinite Augment rune. So I think that this isn't going to impact, and I think most likely by then, well, it was about 28 days of dailies to get to Reverd. So again, that's going to mean that you have time to get Reverd and get the Unity Legendary by the time you can get the belt from the story. If you care about this. At least that was on the... I'm not sure if they've changed the time it takes to do the rep grind. Either way, there's either going to be incredible demand for rank 7 belts, because everyone is going to want to upgrade their Covenant belt, or there's going to be pretty good demand for belts and strong demand for a lot of other rank 7 legendaries, where people want to craft the new Unity power on the optimal slot for their build, whatever that is. Interestingly enough, there's even the potential that the release of the Unity belt changes the optimal slot for all of their legendaries. Like until they get Unity, it might be optimal to have a certain legendary in one slot, and then that slot might conceivably change for some specs 3 weeks into the expansion to accommodate for the Unity legendary. It's possible. I don't think it's likely, but it is possible. That's going to be not matter that much. Now, we definitely also, in this vein of the rep grind, we should not underestimate the will of World of Warcraft players to grind for even relatively minor performance boosts. They are going to do that if they see something valuable from it. So I definitely think we'll see a lot of players crafting legendaries with the Unity power on a better slot than the belt, if that is a better slot available. Obvious examples would be specs where the spec or class-based legendary that they play cannot be put on one of the high stat budget items. So if you can't put the legendary you're playing on a chest, helmet, or legs, you're going to want to put the Unity power there. And I think that's in general going to be one of the best, most flexible setups, is to just have your Unity power on one of the power slots, because then you're guaranteed to always be running a max stat budget slot, regardless of activity you're in, which might or might not be better than swapping it around there. It's always obviously the possibility that it's optimal to have two different unities based on which spec you're playing or which build you're playing, which is also interesting. So the last thing we wanted to talk about here, or the next thing I wanted to talk about, players recrafting legendaries, because the optimal slots for legendaries, that's changing from 9.1 to 9.2. Tier sets have different restrictions than their Shards of Domination. So I expect we'll see some players do this as soon as the patch is out, instantly, to craft rank 6s, to prepare for what is going to be the main slot, because when the patch is out, then Shards of Domination lose their effect. So for instance, if you're going to have your legendary on your helmet, it's better to just have a legendary helmet which has a normal socket than a Shard of Domination helmet which does not have a socket. It has a Shard of Domination socket, which is useless in 9.2. Of course, we're also probably going to see some players just wait for rank 7, because it's not going to matter that much to have the optimal rank 6 slot for Heroic Week for some players. It's not going to be a huge difference. So I think some players might just wait for rank 7. It depends a little bit on how expensive rank 6s get. It's definitely going to plow through the demand people, or the supply people have of Quartzite crystals can be blown through relatively quickly. And 9.1, we definitely saw that there was a very significant bump to rank 4 sales and prices. It's not exactly the same this time around, because 9.1, Soul Cinders was completely time-gated. So if you wanted a specific legendary in the right slot, you had to buy a rank 4. Essentially, you couldn't get the Soul Cinders for a new legendary for quite a while. This time around, getting enough Cosmic Flux is quite easy. So you can put any legendaries you want in the optimal slot relatively painlessly, as long as people get access to the rank 7 legendary recipe. So any effect on the rank 6s is definitely going to be shorter term than what we saw with rank 4 legendaries that were selling incredibly well for a very long time after 9.1. So I don't think we'll quite see that happen with rank 6s in 9.2, because Cosmic Flux is just a lot more abundant, which means that it's not, you don't have to wait that long to just go straight to rank 7, whereas in 9.1 you had to wait a long time to go straight to rank 6, so getting the rank 4 so you could test it out and stuff was more valuable. So overall, from all of this, I expect legendaries to do extremely well. The slight delay for getting access to vestiges will let us have some time to see material prices stabilize and farm up a little bit of a buffer of the new materials. Of course, that's going to be important. In the 9.1, the vestige recipe was locked behind the 4th chapter of the campaign, which followed a similar structure to the campaign in 9.1, which means we were able to craft rank 6 legendaries a week earlier. But then, on the other hand, the ability to finish those legendaries at the Rune Carver and turn them into rank 6 legendaries there was 2 weeks slower, because Soul Cinders was a time-gated currency. So that was slower. So it meant that the demand for legendaries at launch, as soon as you could craft them, was not that high. Relatively, like, prices were really high, but people weren't buying that many because they couldn't actually turn them into legendaries yet. So anyone with a little bit of economic sense would realize that I could just wait and the price would probably go down, because why would people be buying when they can't even turn them into a finished legendary yet? This is of course a little bit crucial, because it means we can take a look at prices of Korthite crystals to get some ideas of the price behavior for the new 9.2 materials. And what happened in 9.1 was that for the first 4 or 5 days after launch, the price trended down for the crystals before spiking up when players could craft legendaries. And this is on a EU region market prices. On my realm, there was a second dip with prices going down again, and then spiking up when players could actually finish their new legendaries at the Rune Carver. This time the lag is slightly longer, so it's between the time you can the expansion launches and you can actually start crafting with the new materials. So it's possible we see prices trend down a little bit longer before rebounding, but the price increase is likely to be significantly higher, because this time around, the time when you can craft a rank 7 legendary is going to be the same time that people can craft their finished rank 7 legendaries at the Rune Carver. There's no lag, no gap, which means that we can expect a much higher surge. There's also the fact that it's not time limited, it's not time gated. You can craft multiple legendaries day 1 of rank 7 legendaries being available. So I expect the surge to be absolutely massive. And if you want to do legendaries in 9.2, you need to spend the first couple of weeks before people can craft the rank 7 legendaries. You should be buying materials, the new materials. Maybe not buy them day 1, but day 3, day 4, you should start buying. Because overall, this is looking, honestly, this patch is looking like a crafter's wet dream. It's incredible. The potential demand with the current way the systems are looking, there are strong incentives to get multiple rank 7 legendaries very early on, and you can do that. There's nothing stopping you from doing that. The only thing stopping people is going to be the potential incredible gold costs of the legendaries. But yeah, I think this is going to be just absolutely amazing. I think it might blow any earlier patch out of the water. There's also some other effects that's going to affect material prices, old world material prices. I'm not going to go into those today. But just the overall trend, I think that the day you get the rank 7 legendary recipe, it's going to be absolutely pandemonium. Going to be incredible sales. So that day specifically is going to be very important to be prepared for if you want to make money. I think this patch is looking incredibly front-loaded in the gold making potential. It's even more bursty than any of the patches of Shadowlands. And Shadowlands has generally been extremely bursty in the gold making meta, with very much happening early on in the patch cycle. So I think just preparing for that and taking advantage of that is really the way to go if you can. It does require a lot of capital. That's the sad part. Like, this is for people who are already rich. If you're not already rich, you're going to be wanting to farm, obviously, the Crafter's Mark recipes. And going hard on those as soon as possible. But yeah, Legendary is looking absolutely incredible for gold making potential in 9.2. It's going to be crazy. And then obviously we have the second peak when people can get the Unity Legendary as well. That'll definitely bring a second win to the market. There's gonna be a period in the middle there where it's gonna trend down a little bit, but we don't know how much time it has to trend downwards. It does depend on how fast people can farm the new materials, which is gonna be the main bottleneck, and potentially the Progenitor Essentia, which might be time gated the same way Korthite crystals were, in that you would generate a couple of them every day per character. But that'll be interesting to see. So that's what I wanted to talk about with the legendaries. I'm going to take one question that I found on my Discord. If any of you who are watching live want to crank one in, now's the time. But I got a question on my Discord server today by a patron, which essentially boiled down to, is the garrison worth it? The Warlords of Draenor garrison. Now, you can make gold with the garrison. My personal opinion is that it's not worth the effort or time at all. Even a min-maxed garrison doesn't really generate that much gold per hour for the time you spend keeping it stocked and keeping it running. So I think that there are so many things that are better better worth spending your time on. If you want to utilize alts for some passive gold making, I think a better approach right now is to min-max for the mission table. Because that's even less daily effort. You can even do that from your phone if you want to. Whereas if you're doing the garrison, you're going to generate a lot of daily materials that you then need to turn into some kind of items that you have to sell. And most of the items are cosmetic in nature, which means that they're going to sell very slowly. So I think you'd be better off just farming Shadowlands materials and raw gold from the Shadowlands mission table with a bunch of alts. If you want to go the alt army relatively low maintenance, log in and get some gold every day game, I think that the best way of doing that is the Shadowlands mission table. Right now I'm not doing that personally because compared to crafting and flipping on a large scale, I don't think it really stacks up. But it works. So I prefer always focusing on current expansion endgame markets. That's where the most amount of gold is being moved through the World of Warcraft economy, so that's where you can make the most gold, and that's always going to be the case. So that's it for me this week. Thanks for listening, watching. If you enjoyed the show, make sure you leave a like, subscribe to the YouTube channel, or just pop this in your playlist if you're listening on Spotify. Yeah, have a profitable week. We'll see you on the next episode. Goodbye, guys.